Hello everyone, Russ of Aquarimax Pets here. Today is a Rubber Ducky update, which will include the addition of these new rubber duckies from Chet. So here is a rubber ducky enclosure that I set up back in May. It was an upgrade from the enclosure that I had before. I had it in a smaller container, and I think I was getting to the size at which the culture wasn't growing very much. You can see I have quite a few in here already. A lot of them kind of on the pale side, so I'm going to need to go through and separate them into the more blonde duckies and the darker duckies. There are a good number of them here. You can see some down in the substrate. I recently took stock of the enclosure and saw there were quite a few babies in here and so on. So they're doing well. They're breeding. There's a young one right there, for example. But I can always use some new blood, and especially blood with the classic darker color. So when Chet offered to meet up with me and provide me with some more duckies, then I was very happy to hear that. So I'm going to share that with you a little bit here. There's a lot of them in here. I'm going to put a few in this deli cup here, and we can kind of get some closer looks at them as we do this. I don't know how long those are going to stay in front of the camera, but I've had my rubber duckies for quite a while, and as I mentioned, I think it's high time for me to go through and separate out the darker duckies from the lighter duckies. For the meantime, though, I'm just going to put these together, and then at some later time I will set up another bin for the light duckies and one for the dark duckies, and we'll do that so that I can have, basically, they won't be exactly strains. I mean, if they breed true for long enough, I could call them strains, but apparently if you don't select for that, eventually you'll end up with a lot of the paler duckies, which are fine. I like the paler duckies and I like the dark duckies. It would be nice to be able to offer both, with everyone know what they're getting and so on. There's a little one right there. I'll put it in here. Now, if you haven't seen my care guide on rubber duckies, you should probably check that out. They're not the most difficult isopods. They're not necessarily one I would recommend starting with, and that's not because they're extraordinarily difficult per se. It's just they're not the easiest, and if you make a mistake with these, it's a little bit more costly, because basically their reproductive rate is not very fast. They tend to have small brood sizes, about half a dozen or so munci in each brood. And even though they will give birth very frequently, like once every month or so, or every 2 months, something like that, when they're in good health and they're at the proper reproductive age and so on, that has been slow enough compared to some others that will produce much more quickly, that they tend to be they're still quite pricey in the hobby. Not quite as pricey as they used to be, but still rather expensive isopod. So I think what it's better to do is learn how to take care of an isopod, a fairly simple isopod, successfully for a while, and once you've done that, then you can probably move on to these just fine, because as long as they have a moist area and they don't dry out, they have some ventilation and proper foods and so on, some good hides, good nutritious, access to nutritious things like leaf litter and rotten wood like this and so on, they tend to do pretty well. Well, that wood is very light. So thank you, Chet, for providing me with these rubber duckies. They are beautiful. Lots of really nice dark ones in here. They're right there is a perfect example of why they're called rubber duckies. That little yellow face with the black eyes and the orange bill. A couple of good examples right there. Put these down into the moss there. And let them join their conspecifics at their leisure. I'm also going to give them a little bit of the bee pollen that Chet was kind enough to give me. He said he had a ton of it, And I find this to be a great food for a lot of invertebrates, isopods among them. So I'm going to put this over here and let them have a little feast. There we go. So thank you all for watching. I post videos every Friday with live streams on Wednesdays, all on aquarium and vivarium pets. Please feel free to share, rate, comment if you haven't already.
Subscribe.
And then tap the bell for all notifications so you don't miss my next video.